to our fourth and final video keynote for Conference to Restore Humanity 2023. As always, this is a flipped keynote address with a video recording of the keynote itself, followed by a live Q&A session on Thursday, July 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern. I want to take a moment and thank the sponsors of this event, including Holistic Think Tank, Cortico, Antioch University, Education Evolving with Teacher-Powered Schools, Unruler, and our gracious donors at Human Restoration Project. These sponsorships ensure that we can continually host successful events like this, as well as release much of each conference's resources as Creative Commons licensed resources for years to come. More information about our partners can be found in the links below. Today, we are joined by the incredible student coalition IowaWTF. Formed in March 2022, IowaWTF is a group of young people, primarily in high school, fighting discriminatory legislation targeting reproductive and LGBTQIA rights. They've advocated against restrictions on teachers through the so-called parents' rights movement and the teaching of divisive concepts, as well as through school voucher programs. Alongside other advocacy organizations, IowaWTF has routinely organized hundreds of students walking out to demand legislative action, fighting for a more just society and common sense school policies. These walkouts have called national attention to their movement that's leading a resistance against regressive policies. As one of IowaWTF leaders, David Lee, says, "The easiest way to give up power is thinking we don't have it." With that, I will turn things over to IowaWTF. Thank you again for joining us.
We are living in the middle of a paradigm shift in the world of activism and advocacy. Now, it's true that students have been at the forefront of resistance movements from the beginning of time in every country, but this time it's different.
Iowa high school students walking out of class today to protest bills coming out of the Iowa legislature. Local 5's Nora J.S. Reichart talked to the students about why they wanted to speak out.
A message shouted for everyone to hear. Students at Urbandale High left class shortly before noon on Wednesday. The walkout was organized by IowaWTF and the Iowa Queer Student Alliance in protest of bills coming out of the Iowa legislature, which they say unfairly target LGBTQ Iowans.
Guys, it's Waverly from IowaWTF, and I'm here today to talk to you all about our official Iowa Legislative Bill Watch. This Bill Watch is an updated document with every single bill in the Iowa legislature that we are, one, walking out for on March 1st, and also two, some other hot topic issues that will impact Iowa's students and Iowa's schools.
So, I have talked to some of you already. A lot of you I haven't talked to, and this is like really last minute kind of stuff. So there's two things I want to tell you about. Number one is, I don't know if you guys been interested or paying attention to the state legislature, but there is a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislature going around. And so one of the organizations I help run, IowaWTF, and Queer Student Alliance, they've been organizing walkouts across the state, and a lot of schools are planning to walk out Wednesday. I was originally not thinking that we were going to do a walkout, but change of plans and we might be doing a walkout, so I'm going to let Irene talk about that.
I am one of the leaders of Spectrum. You've probably at least heard of it. It's Gender Sexuality Alliance. We're organizing a walkout. We're talking to admin. It would be this Wednesday, and we're planning on the last 30 minutes of the school day. If you want to make posters for any of it, did you mention the photo shoot thing?
Not yet.
Okay. We also need posters, so if you have any spare time or you have any creative bones in your body, please use those bones and make us posters.
We're going to walk out, do your research, or ask why you're reading, what's going on. Like, educate yourself as to why you're walking out.
Yeah.
Don't just walk out for the sake of walking out like no one.
And if you do know anything about it and like you want to make a poster, we have some slogans that we want to use if you can't come up with anything. So
for the legislative bills, if you go into Instagram or Twitter and follow IowaWTF, we have all of that information on there on like what are the legislative bills that are harmful to students. And there's a lot of instructional and kind of community building stuff that's going on. So I go follow IowaWTF for more information.
It's this one.
Yeah, it's this Wednesday, which was why I was like, it's a 3-day time span. I don't know if I can organize it. But since Spectrum is already on it.
Yeah, even if we can't walk out, please educate yourself. Please tell people you know. This is something that's really scary. In total, there's 13 bills being proposed, and they're all being rushed along. If you can have any time to inform yourself, any time to tell people you know, please do so. A lot of you either know queer people or are a queer person yourself. These opportunities are a chance to use your voice. These bills are not just concepts, they're affecting real people. And if you have something to say, if you have feelings, this is your chance to express it. This week, these activities, it's your chance to let the people know that you are a person, this will affect you.
Just know that you might be marked absent, but they're working on it.
We are working on that as hard as we can. Please only the walkout, please only participate in it too if you are 100% sure that you are safe if you participate in it, and that like your family, if they were to find out, they would.
Sounds good. Love you guys. Thanks.
Are you guys walking out?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Damn, that is amazing.
Oh, thanks, man.
You just had that underneath
Yeah.
today? Oh my goodness. What? His outfit.
Good.
Do you want to say hi to the camera?
What?
How are you feeling?
Nervous.
Are you guys all speaking?
I am.
Oh, I did sign up to speak. Okay.
Really? Okay. Sorry.
Did you check the IowaWTF Instagram? Guys,
You
it's
sent
insane.
it.
Like,
What? Oh yeah,
the amount
I
of people.
recorded it because I want to remember that.
like it's insane. Like, I think we
Yes,
might
I
be
saw-
having like over 10,000 people across the state. This is how you organize a walkout in 3 days, guys. Holy shit, there's so many people.
I'm here! I'm queer! I stand with the gays!
Ames, you just continue to fucking amaze me every single time.
Can I get everybody to
Here too. Look at this.
Well, new tonight, hundreds of protesters are pushing back against anti-LGBTQ legislation at the State House. It comes as several bills survive the legislation.
Just look at the numbers of activism trends in the past 50 years. Largest civil rights protest, March on Washington, 250,000. Largest Vietnam War protest on October 21st, 100,000. Now compare that to the other more recent movements. The Women's March on January 21st in 2017 had 4 million across the United States. March for Lives, led by youth, in one day had 1.2 million across the US. Global Climate Strike Day in 2019, 4 million across the world. And Black Lives Matter 2020, in the span of several weeks, 15 through 26 million people. Hundreds of thousands compared to several million. Now, there are two factors that specifically distinguish the newer marches from the older ones. First is that the newer protests are less centralized. They're spread all across the United States and not just in DC. Second, these grassroots protests are largely organized by the youth.
So let me start just doing a quick round of introductions and go from there.
Kira Barker, Executive Director, Polk County Democrats. Thank you for being here.
You got it.
David Lee, I'm from IowaWTF, and I was one of the co-founders with her.
My name is Haley Bonds, and I'm the lead facilitator of the Community of Racial Equity at Urbandale.
I'm Waverly Zhao. I'm one of the other co-founders of IowaWTF in Johnson.
Can you spell out the acronym for me?
It's Iowa, what the fuck?
Iowa what?
What the fuck?
Oh. Great. Now I got it. And now we know.
It's very present, what we do.
I'm Lulu. I'm the chairwoman of State of Iowa Youth Advisory Council and also part of IowaWTF.
Great.
I'm Katie Crowley. I'm with the Iowa Queer Student Alliance.
Lovely.
I'm Joe Bullock. I'm with IowaWTF co-founder and also Iowa QSA.
I'm Emma Mitchell. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Queer Student Alliance. I'm Rebecca Schurz. I'm here with Iowa QSA and IowaWTF as well.
Great. What's QSA? Queer Student Alliance?
Yes.
I'm Akshar. I'm the co-executive director of March for Our Lives Iowa.
Great. Who are you?
State Representative Adam Sadden. I represent the north side of Iowa City.
The only thing I'll just say briefly about IowaWTF, grassroots organization that had a bunch of awesome protests at the State House and really made their voices heard, organized walkouts across the state.
Yeah, with Iowa QSA.
Yeah, it was really, really exciting. New organization that popped up this year.
Yeah.
Very
On
cool.
the bathroom bill, on gun stuff, gun safety, so.
Thanks for spending some of your time with me today. especially on a Saturday in the summer. So. You feel like, I feel like you have your teacher hat on right now. Are you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We've got like probably 15 minutes here before we got to go back out onto the main stage. So if any questions or conversation, words of wisdom?
Oh, well, I love your acronym because
It's accurate.
When we were
It's very
selecting the
accurate.
name,
I was
we
gonna say-
realized we wanted something that was like eye-catching and also like, oh, they're serious about this, guys.
Yeah.
So
It was a long discussion.
There was a lot of
It took
discussion
us a lot. We were like, is it too audacious?
No.
Thank you. Respect.
You could let Lulu ask her.
Yours makes sense.
I read your book. You talk about growing up gay in rural, Midwest Michigan, right? I work at United Action for Youth, which is I run the art studio there, but it's a bunch of gay and trans youth, and they come from all over, and it's mainly rural areas I find that need the most help. What do you suggest for like LGBT advocacy in rural areas? Because as you can see, this table is all Des Moines, and I'm Iowa City.
Yeah.
But rural areas are the ones where I see these kids are taking refuge in cities because they're like, dude, it is bad in some of these smaller schools. I had a student that named the school they were going to, and then a staff member at UAY goes, can you transfer? And I was like, oh, it's so, what do you, like, you were there. Like, what do you think is the solutions in rural communities to make LGBT kids feel safer?
The big difference now is that this table wouldn't have existed when I was going to high school. And in fact, even if you were queer, like you were deeply in the closet, nobody had the confidence or the ability to come out. It was unsafe to come out. And so one of the things that I'm seeing right now that I'm so inspired by is the fact that young people are leading now, trying to get older people to catch up. And one of the tremendous things that you can do with your network is to find other young people, maybe in these rural schools, if you even have like one partner at a rural school, because community saves lives, right? Even if you just have one person in your corner, to feel less alone, to feel seen, to be validated. So if your network is branching out and you have liaisons at a rural school, that is one way to help someone feel connected to. I see some like smiles and nods, like we already did it. That's fantastic. Another thing that I've been talking, especially to older people about, the adults, you can probably see in the auditorium today, we're here for, I wrote a YA book. The majority of my following are older adults. So it's really about educating adults. My mantra, and you'll probably hear me repeat this story out there, is that I believe in not beating people over the head with a 2x4, but laying them down and building a bridge. It's the harder work, because sometimes, like your acronym insinuates, you do want to beat people over the head with a 2x4, especially when they are denigrating someone's humanity. But I find the better work is laying down the work, building the bridge, and allowing someone the grace and the time to get to the right side of history. And that's hard because we're talking about people's lives, their humanity, their dignity, and their safety. And sometimes that's not work, especially for an older generation, that happens overnight. But I like investing in the work, but know that that can be exhausting, as you are well aware of. And you also have to focus on taking care of yourself, protecting your peace, filling your cup, making sure that you have enough gas in the tank to keep going. But it's really about educating an older generation. Many people have never met a trans person or a queer person. They have no idea what it's like. And I try to root all of my conversations in the humanity of a human being. We're not talking about these characters that exist on the internet. Trans people aren't just something to be debated in like the ether of online. These are real people's lives. And maybe you've never met a trans person that you know of. Maybe you've never come face to face with a trans or a queer person, but ask yourself, what would you do if that was someone that you love? What would you do if that was your kid? Because I think one of the things that tie many of us older people together, especially parents, is the unconditional love for your child. So I try to root my conversation with older people in that love for a child. Wouldn't you lay down your life for your kid? Wouldn't you do everything to move mountains for your kid? Let's remember that we're talking about real people here. And then one of the great things that I see young people doing is reframing the conversation around real world issues. If you claim to care about young people, if you care about protecting young people, then why aren't you focused on doing anything about gun violence? Gun violence is the #1 cause of death amongst young people in this country. It's not a trans person wanting to play soccer. And young people are so great at reframing that conversation, like, I just love that that is your acronym. Like, what the fuck? We're all trying to survive. Like, you go to school in this country, and the reality is that it could be your last day. That's a reality in America. You are not safe in the grocery store, you're not safe at school or the library or your synagogue. That is just a known fact in America now because gun violence is so pervasive. So I think when you're having those conversations, rooting it in real world issues, rooting it in the humanity of a person, but also approaching it with grace. I want to help you get to the right side of it. I'm not here to just call you a bigot and make you feel smaller, but I do want you to remember that these are my friends, these are your community members, and that queer people are everywhere. Queer people are your teachers, your lawyers, your doctors, your nurses. We will mend your broken bones. We will run into a burning building to save your life. We'll fix your pickup truck. We do everything. I won't fix your pickup truck. Somebody will. And just remind people of that. We're talking about real people here. But in rural America specifically, had I had one person like you, life would have been different. There was no one. No one was out. The only examples I had were Will and Grace and Ellen DeGeneres on television. That was it. And it felt like you could be gay in Hollywood, but you couldn't be gay in rural Michigan. And so just having one lifeline, I could sense that you are already trying to spread those threads across Iowa, making sure that at least other queer youth have that connection to Des Moines. They at least feel a connection to younger people who are working on something much bigger.
We are in a paradigm shift of activism. I'll explain why that is in just a second, but first we have to understand why resistance movements today look so much different than it did 50 years ago. Here are the key ingredients to a successful resistance movement. 1. Community. 2. Purpose. And 3. Challenging the status quo. All three of these ingredients come to create an identity of a movement and what kind of legacy that identity leaves. Here's where it gets interesting. An identity of a movement is often heavily influenced by how it is perceived by the public. Once the news outlets get involved, public perception has the power to stigmatize, uproot, and even destroy the identity of a movement in a heartbeat. It brings about doubt to what the movement is actually about and what it stood for. You know how it goes. Just take the example of the Black Panther movement. Most of the workings of this movement was peaceful, based around community building, like their free survival programs, including the Children's Free Breakfast Program, transportation services, and free medical provisions. But you see, when the Black Panthers are mentioned today, they are always compared as the violent, anarchist counterpart to Martin Luther King Jr.'s peaceful civil rights movement. The news outlets, government support, and public perception will always make or break a movement. The Black Panthers died out in 1982, and although they lasted 14 years longer than the Civil Rights Movement, and arguably had a larger impact on the Black community in the US, history credits MLK, not Malcolm X, to be the face of racial equality and the adoption of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 68, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But the news world is changing. Our media world is slowly turning into a social media world, where technology that gives us power to define our own identities and the identities of the resistance grassroots movements we are building is literally in our hands. In our hands, that little rectangle that is video capturing me right now. It is the cause of thousands of high school clubs, activism organizations, and resistance movements sprouting across the country. It's what's keeping us engaged every time we open our phones and need to be reminded of how many other people are out there fighting for the same issues. It's also connecting one group with another, like IowaWTF with March for Our Lives. Each group, distinct identities, and a little bit of a different agenda, but we all work together for the same purpose, to serve the same population. It's bringing ownership to the students out there, a personal sense of agency, a feeling that we can actually make an impact in this world. Separate identities that merge into one. Today, thousands of high school clubs and youth organizations exist that can independently get work done, survive if one other branch dies out, and always come together to fight for the same cause. Okay, hi.
Hi.
I actually don't know a lot about you, so can you introduce yourself and what organization you're with?
Yes. My name is Akshara Ishwar. I'm gonna be a senior at Johnston High School. and I'm the co-executive director of March for Our Lives Iowa. We are a youth-led organization aimed at harnessing the power of young people and getting them involved in politics more. But our main focus is to reduce gun violence. We're big on gun violence prevention. We were founded in 2018, July 26th, after the Parkland shooting. And, enough is enough. We have horrible gun laws right now, and our biggest mission is to get those removed, create common sense gun laws, and safety in Iowa first on a local and state level.
What is your why, your purpose for actually doing it and continuously doing it? Because I know you got into it because of a role model, but that's not the reason you stayed and you continue to connect with others.
I think it's just the fact that I'm doing something. If I were to sit at home and just read all the articles about all these mass shootings and all these kids that are dying, and heart of hearts, somewhere at the bottom of my mind, I know that I've done absolutely nothing to help, and I'm just sitting at home, that would actually kill me, I think. And I had that. I was, unfortunately, on Tuesday, I was unable to go to walk at the rally at the Capitol for the abortion ban. And I felt so guilty. I was sick to my stomach because it's kind of, I don't know if it's not reasonable maybe to feel that way, but it's what if I had gone? What if I had gone and said something, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today. And so that's kind of I think I'm an optimist at heart, and I just want to know that I was part of the change. And had I not been part of the change, I think I would not be proud of myself, and I don't think I would be happy with who I am.
Hey, it's WTF from IowaWTF, and I'm currently in Fez, Morocco. Did you know that in Arabic, Iowa means so-so? Fitting for our current political climate. Now, I'll answer some questions and tell you a little bit about myself up here. Okay, look at the view. So a little bit about me. I first started in activism and advocacy work back in my sophomore year of high school by joining my local community of racial equity chapter at Johnston High School. And that's actually similar to a lot of our other leaders within IowaWTF. We all got started locally within our own communities. And so after core, I got connected with more students in our statewide group with all of the cores from around Iowa, and we were able to connect and kind of talk with each other about how a lot of the issues that we saw as far as racism and racial inequity went within our community, a lot of those things were similar throughout Iowa, and so we kind of understood that this was a problem that was everywhere, not just centralized to our communities. And so that kind of initially set off the light bulb in my head of wow, something needs to happen across the state where students can come together. Some other things that also got me connected with students across the state and more in the legislative aspect was the Iowa Student Learning Institute, which focused on public education and the book bannings that were happening a few years ago. Also getting involved in my student council and joining my school board as the student representative also got me connected in the more political and government side of things. And then also working with parent groups, working on campaigns locally for school board and also for the House of Representatives also got me well connected, and I got to learn a lot about the current state of politics in Iowa and how it has changed a lot since we were kids. And all of that together got me connected with people who knew other people, and I got so many opportunities from there, including starting IowaWTF. And so meeting David, Gemma, Uma, Mia, and Anyel, all the original founders, we were able to come together and originally surrounding racial issues, build IowaWTF, and now we have grown so much from there, and we are a multifaceted organization that focuses on multiple issues that impact Iowa youth. And then following all of that, as I continued working in IowaWTF, I really found a passion for legislative work. And so I applied to be a page in the Iowa legislature this past session, and I was able to work for the House Minority Leader's office, and I was able to work closely with people who had the same ideas and passions as me, and I learned so much from just that experience. I also got a firsthand look into the current state of our legislature and was very disheartened, but I am happy that I had the experience because not a lot of people do, and I feel even more well-rounded and passionate about this work coming out of that, and so I'm excited to continue to work in the future from DC.
Hey, it's Nico from IowaWTF here, and I'm currently in Santiago, Chile. I don't unfortunately have any fun facts, unlike Waverly, but I will be talking about similar things. First of all, how I got into advocacy. I got into advocacy similarly like Waverly, and that was through CORE, my community of racial equity chapter at Valley High School. I joined that with a pair of twins who were also the leaders of that chapter, were also a couple of the founders of IowaWTF, Mia and Uma. And then I went ahead, started getting myself involved with more and more advocacy here and there with a faucet of different issues, not only racial equity. And then that's how I ended up becoming a member of IowaWTF and now into the leadership team. With Waverly Jowell leaving the state, that means that there will be no leader for the legislative team, and have graciously offered myself to go ahead and take that role upon myself. And that means, what will I take IowaWTF towards? What will I try to achieve with the team and really with the resources that IowaWTF has to offer? First of all, I want to go ahead and create a network where other people like us can go ahead and, first of all, create a community. Because with Iowa Youth Advocates, we have all realized that there are not many of us. You can often see a lot of our faces over and over again in the same area. So what I want to do is create a network where we can all try to contact each other when we need help regarding different issues, really. You see, let's say, because I'm not an expert on everything, so let's say I need issues on understanding something regarding gun rights or gun advocacy. Then I would go ahead and contact someone within that network. So I have already sort of started that, and that is where I would like to take IowaWTF within the future in one of many aspects. The next step that I would like to take IowaWTF towards would be regarding the legislative session. Obviously, the legislative session is shorter than a lot of other states. Why? Because we are a farm state, and that's okay. But that also means that we need to work extra hard during those months that the legislative session is there. But we also don't have a lot of other things regarding local policy work, at least within the state level, outside of those 3 or 4 months, depending on how long it goes. So outside of those 3 or 4 months, what I will be taking IowaWTF is so that we can go ahead and focus on national aspects of policy work. Because Iowa is such a great space to start getting involved into politics, especially as a member of the youth. But then how are you connected to the national politics? There isn't, it's sort of a gray area at times. So what I would love to do is been doing the same things that IowaWTF has been doing regarding speaking out and speaking the truth, but not only within Iowa, but also within issues that matter nationwide. And that would be a step that we would, more than anything, focus on the issues that are going nationwide. How would those affect Iowans? And more than anything, students within Iowa. Because also, we have to keep in mind that a lot of students within Iowa, at least college students, are not from Iowa, and they're not from the state. So how can we make those issues also be relevant to us? Because they are, and we just need to go ahead and shine a light on that. The next thing that I'll be doing with IowaWTF will be a voter registration. A voter registration in the state of Iowa has usually been attempted by the Secretary of State, but the Secretary of State is an office position that is held by either the Democrats or the Republicans, and it ends up being a partisan issue. And unfortunately, that's not something that needs to be happening, and also can either drive away people from registering or encourage other people from registering, and really sort of unbalancing the votes on really reflecting what it truly is. So work has already started to be done with that regarding IowaWTF, other youth advocacy organizations, and just other members of the youth within the state of Iowa to try to get that program going when it's not really a partisan issue and it's more than anything an issue where we need to get the youth vote out there, because the youth vote is what matters the most. Because we are the ones that are going to be down the line 50 years from now, and all these issues might still be there unless we change them now. The last thing that I will be doing with IowaWTF is I'm going to make sure to have fun. A lot of times in advocacy work, the environment when something doesn't go your way can seem very discouraging. So with the team that I've built, I've tried to make sure to let them know that I'm not here as sort of like person telling them what to do. Obviously, if that needs to happen, that will happen. But more than anything, we strive to be an organization for students by students. So what that means is that I'm not going to be telling people what they have to be doing. If they want to help out, they can go ahead and can, but they don't have to, because a lot of times we are students and we are busy with our lives. So that is sort of a reminder to make sure to always stay positive and look at the positive life side of things, especially when you are involved in advocacy work.
What is your advice for young people wanting to get started in this work?
My advice is to know what you're passionate about ahead of time and know your values, because I feel like a lot of, at least as you kind of move up in this space, a lot of your own values and I guess just ideas are challenged, or you feel like you know, are being questioned, or a lot of your values are being questioned. So going in knowing kind of what you stand for is important, but also being willing to listen to other people and understand their point of view, and also maybe potentially from that learn something else and change your own perspective is super important. So going in knowing what you stand for, but also being willing to potentially change your stance once you have gathered more information about it. Also take opportunities and be easy to work with. You can, you know, say no to things and just stay stagnant, or you can be fluid and be flexible with people and really be a team player, and then you'll just find ease and find connections, and people will learn to rely on you, and then vice versa. So
what is the biggest challenge that you've faced since beginning down this path?
I think it's been learning to rest and dealing with, I guess, losing, feeling like I haven't made enough progress from where I wanted. And I guess I can say that you won't be able to save the world and help people in one day. And so it's super important to understand that this is a long-term type of field. Like, it's not all going to happen in one day or 1 week or 1 month. And just at the little progress you can make, the small things you can do to inspire people and to get them involved is super important. And then also making sure you can rest. I'm currently in Morocco, resting from the legislative session and from the long years of high school. So making sure that you also fit in time to just exist as a human.
Is this paradigm shift, the power of media coming directly into the youth's hands, going to revolutionize the world for human progress? It's going to change things up, that's for sure, but for the better or for the worse, we don't know yet. As world-renowned historian and author of Humankind, Rutger Bregman, says, something along the lines of, the impact of historical events should never be judged by a world that's experiencing it in real time. So for now, it's not a historical fact. It's just a hypothesis made by a random boy in a bookstore. But isn't it cool how one video shot on an iPhone made you almost believe that it was true? The power we hold in our hands. We are living in a paradigm shift in the world of activism and advocacy, and the youth are here to change things up, whether you like it or not.